Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to BRAP. It is Wednesday, August the 6th, and it's great to be back. I'm going to adjust my headphones here. There we go. It's great to be back, and I want to thank everyone for joining us here live, as you do every Wednesday night. It means a lot. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And so today's show is going to be probably a little more of a rant, more or less. Had some interesting conversations around interesting enough, just around the future of video games. That somehow Sony has to go multi-plat because I was having a conversation with someone about their business strategy, and it was mentioned that, well, in terms of the console market, the cup is full, and no, it's not necessarily as simple as the cup being full. But there's also a lot of hemming and hawing over which video game console has the winning strategy, which is something we're going to talk about today, because it's a conversation that I'm seeing happen quite a bit, and I don't know why. I think that it's interesting because I don't necessarily know that we have these types of conversations about other consumer products. I don't think we sit there and say or ask the question whether one consumer product has the right strategy. And what often is taken off the table is the nuance that I think is often required to have these conversations. I see a lot of times where there's this attempt to flatten any nuance just to drive home a point. And I think that there's a lot of things that get lost in these conversations when we do that. So it's very unfortunate. Give me a second here. So yeah, so this is going to be kind of a rant of sorts. I haven't, it's funny. I haven't done a, excuse me. I haven't done a rant in quite some time. What's up, Melrose Mike? Chrono Rig says, "Oh, I like that. What kind of pizza is that, by the way? I like that. Is that Detroit pizza? It's I'm assuming that's pizza, and it looks like pizza at least. But Chrono Rig says misinformation brings the clicks, unfortunately. And you, sir, 110%. What's up, Ghostface Killer? You're 110% right, Chrono Rig. Do me a favor. Oh, actually, I'm gonna drop a link here in the live chat. Oops. Do me a quick favor. Do me a quick favor. Share the link on your favorite social media platform. Let everyone know we're live. I'm going to do the same here. All right. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to go quiet here. I'm actually watching professional wrestling. I tend to do that, by the way. I tend to have wrestling playing in the background. Now, Speaking of professional wrestling, I don't know if everyone, if the listeners, if you're aware of this, WWE will now be streaming their live premium events through ESPN's new streaming service, which costs $30 a month. Now, when I first heard about ESPN streaming service running about $30 a month, I immediately balked at the notion of paying ESPN $30 for a subscription service. However, oh, actually, I should probably read this. WrestleNomics. What is WrestleNomics saying? WrestleNomics saying only some pay TV carriers because customers will automatically get WWE PLEs on ESPN's new streaming platform. Following up on our early report on WWE's new deal with ESPN, bringing premium live events to ESPN's new streaming service in 2026. Whether you need to subscribe to a $30 a month platform depends on which TV provider you have. The new service launching August 21st, which includes access to ESPN's linear channels, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN. Okay, I'm going to move on to that. But not all paid TV subscribers who already get ESPN will be able to watch WWE PLEs on the new platform without paying extra. According to a person familiar with the agreement, only customers for the following providers will be granted access to the PLEs through ESPN's app at no additional cost. Verizon, Fios, Hulu, Fubo, DirecTV, and Charter Spectrum. I need Fios. So basically, if you don't have those cable providers, you're gonna have to pay the $30 a month for the streaming service. Now, again, I balked at the idea of subscribing to ESPN streaming service for $30. However, as a wrestling fan, well, actually, Machine XP, it is about platforms and ecosystems, which I'll get to in a second because I don't disagree with you. But the ESPN thing is interesting because, well, okay, let me walk this back here a little bit. So I was initially, like I said, I balked at the idea of paying $3, 30, not three. Three actually would be a deal. $30 for ESPN, the new ESPN streaming service. But the WWE paid live events, which is their pay-per-views, they typically, if you purchase them on pay-per-view, they typically run about $50, right? And they have a WWE, I keep talking. WWE will run a PLE every month, once a month, right? So we just had SummerSlam this month. Next month is, forget what next month is. Anyhow, so if you're paying 50 a month and you value WWE and you value having access to those live pay-per-view events, the WrestleManias, the SummerSlams, the Elimination Chamber, the Royal Rumble, if you value those things, then $30 a month isn't so bad for the live pay-per-views because you're getting it at a discounted rate, plus you're getting all the other ESPN stuff. UCD XP says that's more than Game Pass. That is more than Game Pass. Which begs the question, would you pay $30 for Game Pass a month? But I'm actually not surprised by this because TKO Sports owns WWE and UFC. And take a guess, UFC also has a deal with ESPN. So I'm not really surprised by this particular deal between WWE and ESPN, considering the relationship that TKO or UFC has with ESPN. By the way, Max and Jeremy is currently trending on Twitter. Sorry, still watching wrestling in the background. Anyhow, all right. Yeah, I think what any and all subscriptions, sorry, read the chat here, have their own value depending on. Yeah, so machine says, good question. I personally would. Yeah, I utilize Game Pass on a regular basis across both PC and console and even cloud. And see that is so this is I don't know if I would pay $30 for Game Pass. Maybe I would. But this kind of goes back to that consumers value things differently. And that always gets lost in the conversation. The consumers value things differently because they do. We know they do. We see this every day. We live this every day. We have conversations with our friends. You may hear, "Oh, that's crazy. You paid how much?" I still hear my parents say that to me. You paid how much for a computer? You paid how much for a truck? It's why there's product differentiation in the market. Although I've been told that that's doesn't matter anymore. I think I may have talked about this last week, but one of the conversations that I've been having on social media is around the idea of exclusivity. And what Chrono Rig mentioned earlier about it's about platforms in the ecosystem. It really is. I mean, it's interesting. As much a lot of the conversation around video games is that, or the video game console business is that it's dying. I've seen that. I mean, I feel like we've been hearing this for. Remember, Michael Pachter predicted the death of video game consoles that was supposed to take place, I believe, the last generation, and that hasn't happened. And you see where mobile gaming has settled now. Mobile gaming now is has kind of it's become a mature market now, and it's interesting because as much as people like to discuss the console market being mature, we never discuss the mobile gaming market being mature. There's just no issue with that, right? But there's an issue with console gaming being mature because, and I think part of that is because I think certain fandoms have narratives that they want to push as relates to the console industry to prove, this goes to the topic, which video game console manufacturer has the winning strategy. But I'm going to go back to exclusives. Exclusives are strategic assets, people. They're strategic assets for these platforms, these ecosystems, as Machine XP mentioned. And I explained this in a tweet, I think it was last week, because you often hear, well, the video game business is changing. And as Logic has often said on this show, yeah, no shit, it's always changing. But the consoles have evolved with the change. They're now nodes of consoles reflecting a node within the ecosystem now. They're used to drive additional spend. See, when I grew up, when I was younger, video game consoles pretty much served one or did one thing, and that is to play video games. That was it. Pop in the cartridge, turn on your TV, voila. But as the video game market has evolved, as the things that consumers want or expect from a console has evolved, so have the consoles. Machine XP, it's a great point. I'll get your last point here in just a second. And I think that's important to recognize because no longer are video game consoles used for solely playing video games, but they now have become part of a larger ecosystem where you have digital storefronts tied to them, where you have peripheral devices tied to them, where you have other forms of entertainment tied to them. They become entertainment hubs. So they've evolved. What I don't understand is why we question exclusivity in video games, but we don't do that for other consumer products. We don't question or say that Nike having an exclusive agreement with Michael Jordan and Air Jordan is anti-consumer or holds no value in the market. We don't have those conversations. And please spare me the, oh, well, it's not the same thing. You don't have to spend $500. Regardless of having to spend $500, exclusives are still brand differentiators in the marketplace that are used to differentiate and potentially sway consumers to either stay engaged in that ecosystem or buy into that ecosystem. Again, we don't have this conversation about Netflix. Why isn't Stranger Things on Disney Plus? Oh, if Stranger Things was on Disney Plus, it'd have more viewers, and more viewers are better for Stranger Things. And they're the same conversation. It's the same thing. The impact is the same. What's up, man overboard? Hold on. I needed to drop a link here real quick. Give me just a second. All right. Sorry about that. We never say, why doesn't WWE allow, although there's some crossover, but why doesn't WWE allow some of its biggest stars like Cody Rhodes, CM Punk to go to AEW? They could sell more merch. More t-shirts to more people. I know I'm kind of oversimplifying the argument, but the point is that exclusives are brand differentiators that serve to keep people in the ecosystem and attract people to buy into the ecosystem. As I said earlier, video game exclusives are strategic assets that play an important role in shaping a platform's identity. So without exclusives, how does Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft, how do they sell? How do they present to the consumer that their ecosystem, in fact, is unique compared to their competitors? I mean, we see the emotional response that people have at times over gaming platforms. So you have to imagine that some of these exclusives create emotional connections for certain consumers and brand loyalty. And companies companies value those things. They value them. I sound like what's his name? Chrono Rig, welcome. The BRAP VIP, thank you so much. Appreciate the support. So they create brand loyalty, they differentiate the ecosystems in the marketplace. I mean, think about this. What is Nintendo synonymous with? And by the way, we never seem to rope Nintendo into this conversation, oddly enough. But they're known for Zelda, Mario, PlayStation, God of War, Spider Man, Xbox, Halo, and at one point, Forza. Somebody brought up an interesting point on social media today on Twitter. I didn't even think about this. They said, are we to believe that the two most successful platform ecosystems in video gaming are we to believe that those two are somehow out of touch with the future? Where the number three player is behind them. Nintendo is a unicorn. But I also disagree with Matt because Matt is, I think Matt has, and he's talked about exclusivity, like the greatest trick the gaming industry has sold consumers is that they need exclusives. And I think Matt, I'd have to go back and look, but I think Matt has. I don't think Matt is doesn't believe. I don't want to. I want to be careful here. I don't want to. I don't want to say Matt thinks exclusives are anti-consumer. I think he's just of the viewpoint that console that games everywhere makes that benefits consumers. I think that's probably his standpoint. I could be wrong. That's my opinion based on some of the things that he has said about exclusives. But think about this about product differentiators and exclusives. I mean, even Xbox, although Xbox has taken a more platform agnostic strategy in their publishing, they still have exclusive features within the Xbox ecosystem. One of those being Game Pass. One of those being the Game Pass Ultimate tier that grants you access to Game Pass across multiple devices. That, in fact, is a product differentiator. That, in fact, is an exclusive. That's a way for Microsoft to differentiate itself from Sony and Nintendo. And for the platform owners, exclusives allow or encourage users to commit to an ecosystem or platform long term. So you get that ecosystem lock in. There's value to that. And I don't say this as to console word take a slight at Xbox, but I think we need to be honest here and say and ask ourselves what they taught us in school: who, what, where, why. The why behind the pivot for Xbox. And the why is because, and we know this because of what Microsoft has reported themselves, the why is that they have issues selling hardware. And if you're creating this platform, this digital ecosystem where hardware is a node or a conduit to additional spend, and you need that hardware to sell well, to push everything else, and it doesn't do that, then what do you do as a business? Probably pivot. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying it is. It just is what it is. There's reasons for them to do that pivot. Now, I'm not going to say that exclusives, they aren't some downside to exclusives. Obviously, there's frustration for certain consumers who may not be able to have the means to afford other ecosystems or platforms, or who don't see the value in spending $500 to play one exclusive. I get that, but that doesn't make them inherently bad. But it is interesting. I think with the advent of cloud gaming, cross-platform play, I think some people have started even arguing, or as a result of those things, I feel like consumers are arguing more that exclusives are becoming outdated or even anti-consumer. And again, I don't see us having these conversations with other forms of entertainment where exclusives are used to leverage that ecosystem stickiness or used to attract new consumers to a particular platform ecosystem. But in gaming, we do. But I would say this: you have a choice in the free market. You don't have to buy PlayStation. You don't have to buy Nintendo. You have that choice. That choice is not taken away from you. Josh Ayers just said something here that I want to highlight. By the way, I went to highlight that earlier, Chrono Rick. Thank you again. Josh Ayers with the Homer Simpson profile pic here says people citing morality to companies is weird. Absolutely, it is. But you look at the impact that exclusives have to hardware sales. Look at Nintendo. Nintendo saw massive spikes in sales during the release windows of Animal Crossing, New Horizons, and Tears of the Kingdom. Big Forte was on here one time talking about how many Nintendo Switches he had sold as a result of Animal Crossing. And then if you think about what that exclusive does, Animal Crossing brings a lot of people into the Nintendo ecosystem. And those people start spending more money in that ecosystem. So when I hear people say, oh, well, you know what? If Nintendo only brought Animal Crossing to Xbox or PlayStation, they would sell more units. And that's good. More units is good. But why does Nintendo want to trade it? Why would Nintendo, in the position they're in, and with the goal of selling you hardware and getting you entrenched in their ecosystem, why would Nintendo see value in a one-off sale where you have somebody who's on PlayStation, Nintendo, paying $50, $60 for Animal Crossing, and then never spending a dime inside the Nintendo ecosystem? Like I don't think this is an overly complex. I don't think this is an overly complex thing to digest and understand that They just don't see value in that. They being Nintendo. And look, exclusives are even important for subscription services. As much as people like to champion subscription services, you take Game Pass, for example. What's the exclusive with Game Pass? Well, yes, many of their first party games are going to other platforms. If you want to play those games day and date, on top of the other 300 or so games, you go to Game Pass. That's the product differentiator. Exclusives are intended to drive Game Pass subscriptions. Day and date in Game Pass is a form of exclusivity, a differentiator. I'd argue that a steady pipeline of exclusives may, for a lot of consumers, justify paying the ongoing or continuing their investment in that ecosystem, that subscription model. Machine X says, is it game exclusivity drives Game Pass? Well, I'm not saying it absolutely drives Game Pass. That's the only thing. I think that it's there to help drive Game Pass. Just like I don't think that 100% that God of War drives sales for PlayStation. That actually may be closer with Nintendo. Oh. So we have three console manufacturers in the video game console space: Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. One is really walking the line, that traditional console model, although it's certainly adapted, incorporated some of the features that we've grown accustomed to within video game consoles. Digital storefront, and now Nintendo Switch 2 has done a better job with the social features, which I think is important for them. Important for any console, to be frank. But I do think that you have these three console manufacturers, and they're each doing different things. And the argument that I typically hear is, well, this one's doing it better because the future of gaming is no longer tied to exclusivity. That little Johnny is only going to like playing Fortnite and gas games and Roblox, and they don't care about hardware, and they don't care about exclusivity, that they don't care about ecosystems. They don't care about ecosystems. They don't care about exclusivity. Excuse me? If you don't think younger generations care about exclusivity and ecosystems or product differentiation or product differentiation, I can't even talk today. Then you don't need to look any further than Fortnite. Remember what I earlier said about that emotional connectivity, that exclusives, or having something else that someone doesn't have, having that sense of prestige that comes along with that? That's a real thing, by the way. You can look it up. If we're saying that the younger generations, my children in particular, who are they range from ages 7 through 16, If you're saying that they don't value those things, if they don't value that those product differentiators, those things that differentiate them from the crowd, then I don't think you're necessarily paying attention to their interaction with games like Fortnite. And you're saying, well, Fortnite's not exclusive. No, it's not. Fortnite has different skins, different weapons, and those skins in particular hold value. And it goes back to the idea of I have something you don't have, or it's this rare skin. I'm going to pay extra money for it. If you're saying that, I've heard this argument that younger generations don't value platforms and ecosystems, then what do you call Fortnite, Roblox? And if you're saying that the younger generation is only going to care about mobile devices or cloud gaming and games everywhere, that they that means they won't care about consoles. But yet, as I just mentioned earlier, consoles have evolved to allow multi-platform, cross-save, and cloud gaming. And Nate says, and you're 100% on point. They always point out some of my rare OG skins of Fortnite and then freak out because they're exclusive and you don't get them ever again. But let's also assume that our kids are playing what their parents allow them to play. So I'm sorry, I don't buy this idea that there's just going to be this generation that doesn't give a shit about exclusivity or product differentiators. They may care more about having access everywhere, but consoles are evolving into this ecosystem where you have access to everywhere or everything. I mean, as much as archaic as, well, Nintendo's not a good example. I don't think they'll ever embrace that. But in a sense, they have, because they basically cannibalize their handheld and home console businesses to one device, which is smart. But you see not Nintendo, you see PlayStation sort of dipping their toes now, right? In this play anywhere, PC, extending their footprint, creating or extending their brand recognition on other platforms, in particular PC. I think PC probably makes the most sense for them. But they're also not doing that. They're also not doing that in a way that's going to impact what they ultimately want you to do, which is buying hardware, their PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 6. So to assume that I it's interesting. I also do think that our kids are, for the most part, play what we allow them to play. Like, I'm never going to say to anyone, well, my kids are only going to play on PC. My kids, or I'm never going to say that, oh, well, future gamers are going to primarily play on PC because my kids do. Trying to pull up this tweet that I had earlier this week. Give me a second here. So we have, it's clear we have three companies offer, more or less doing different things, which I personally think is great for consumers. I think it's great that you have three distinct choices as a consumer to consume video games. I think that's great. And I tweeted this earlier in the week, and I said what the content grifters fail to understand, like the Cold Eastwoods, like the Boomsticks, like the PlayStation console war podcasters. Can't think of any at the moment. But what the content grifters fail to understand is debating which gaming company, Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo, has the best business model is a fool's errand. The truth is, none of them are universally better. They're optimized for different goals, risks, and audiences. And yet, we've talked about it on this show. Companies have different risk appetites, different goals, different objectives. Companies play to their strengths. Why do we forget about those things when we have these conversations? Xbox leads into ecosystem and accessibility, betting on long-term engagement through Game Pass and cloud. It's high risk, high reward, and great for a company with deep pockets and a broader tech strategy. PlayStation focuses on prestige and premium experiences, blockbuster exclusives. I think the perfect analogy for PlayStation is Apple. We don't have those conversations about Apple. And ironically, the people that are questioning exclusivity or product differentiators are actively engaged in the Apple ecosystem, which I think is funny. So PlayStation focuses on prestige and premium experiences, blockbuster exclusives, high margin hardware, and a loyal core audience. That's stickiness I mentioned. It's a model built on brand strength and consistency. And consistency, I had this conversation with somebody on Twitter. Consistency is often why when PlayStation drops the ball, they are criticized, maybe not to the extent of Xbox, but it's not because of an Xbox tax. It's because of that consistency that PlayStation has built over the course of 30 years, where consumers are a bit more forgiving because of PlayStation's track record. Because they've earned some brand equity or trust from consumers. I don't know if any of you have managed a staff or have had to manage a team at work, but if you have an employee that's an underperformer versus one who's an overperformer, and that underperformer is inconsistent, doesn't deliver work, doesn't communicate well, you're more likely to do what? What are you more likely to do with that underperforming employee who isn't consistent in their work and their deliverables? You probably aren't going to be as flexible with them or as understanding when they commit errors at work. But what the high performer does, make those same mistakes as a low performer, you're more likely to, okay, I'll address it's a thing. But you're less likely to maybe drag them through the mud. Because you trust them, because they've been consistent. Because their brand, and yes, there are brands at work, is one of consistency and a good work product. Nintendo, they play a different game entirely. Also, I'm reading my tweet, by the way. Lower specs, high creativity, evergreen IP, and unmatched toyetic appeal. People often mention or think of Nintendo as kind of the toy. Transparency is key, Brian. Great point, by the way. Brian says transparency is also a valuable asset if in an employee if we're considering everything. I don't disagree with that. Nintendo, their model thrives on nostalgia, innovation, and self-contained ecosystems, and they're doing very well. Each strategy fits the DNA of the company behind it. Comparing them like they're playing the same sport misses the point. I want to repeat this. Each strategy fits the DNA of the company behind it. Comparing them like they're playing the same sport misses the point. They're not trying to win the same race, they're running different ones. And I wrote this because I personally don't think there's I know the conversation among content creators, not all, but some, and those on social media revolves around winning. Which platform has the right strategy? Which platform is best positioned for the future? And I've said this on this show before, neither Nintendo, Sony, or Xbox, neither of their strategies are wrong or better. And I say that because their strategies are tailored towards the DNA of the company, their goals, and what risks they're willing to take and not take. These three companies have kind of etching out their own piece of the pie within the industry. And I don't think that's discussed enough. I don't think that's celebrated enough. Because I think by them doing things somewhat differently, that gives us consumers choice. But instead, the conversations around, well, he said, she said, or why isn't Xbox treated fairly? Or why does this happen? The focus isn't on the great things or the good things that these companies are doing for consumers in terms of offering choice, a different type of choice. And that's up to you, the consumer, to figure out if that choice or whatever they're offering you makes sense for you. But it does seem that, and I hate to talk about sides, it does seem like one side in particular is looking to justify the pivot that their preferred platform is making. So it seems to be more about winning an argument than actually winning and enjoying a gaming experience. that's tailored to whatever needs you have as a consumer. By the way, if you've ever listened to one of my rants in the past, they're usually not long rants, so please, I wouldn't expect this to be a regular BRAP, like a 2-3 hour BRAP. But one of the things that has come up, and I was involved in this conversation about a week ago, about do I think PlayStation will bring their exclusives to Xbox? And I said, no, I don't think they'll bring their marquee exclusives to Xbox, their S tier studios, the God of Wars, the Spider-Mans. And we talked about it last week. Why I don't think they'll bring Spider-Man, some of these other games over, the S tier studios, the S tier exclusives, because they hold a lot of value to Sony. They're brand differentiators. They're part of their brand identity. Um, but it was interesting. The reasoning I was given why some people think that they're going to put these types of games on Xbox, well, because they'll sell more units. And as I said, well, they may not see value in that one-off sale. When you're selling an ecosystem, you probably don't value a one-off sale as much as you would somebody buying that same exclusive inside your ecosystem and then spending additional money, as opposed to someone buying that exclusive and not spending any additional money after they purchase that exclusive. And if you don't believe me in the value that these companies see in squeezing pennies out of consumers that are currently inside their ecosystem, and then look at PlayStation 5. Now, we talked about this last week. Look at PlayStation 5. It's generated the largest amount of operating income of any PlayStation generation. I had the slide up last week. Go check out last week's show. Also, hit that like button. So, how is PlayStation able to generate? Yeah, now I want to pull up the slide. Hold on a sec here. Let me share this slide here. So, how is PlayStation? And this is from 2024. How did PlayStation manage to have the most profitable generation to date with the PlayStation 5 in less time than the PlayStation 4? And I tell you why. Some of that goes back to being able to monetize. And you'll see there's another chart that Sony put out where they show the increase in subscription revenue and like DLC content for the digital storefront. So if you're bringing people into the ecosystem and they're spending more money in that ecosystem because of a $70 purchase, that is potentially more valuable to them than that one-off transaction. Anyhow, so I was having this conversation, and somebody brought up the console market being mature. That tends to be a talking point, and I often say, well, yeah, that's true, but a but a business can operate within a mature market and still be profitable and still meet its objectives. Again, that's the nuance I'm just talking about. Now, I did do a little research on the mature market of the mature console market. A couple things that I found, and this could vary a little bit depending on the research firm, but this is by Grandview Research. It's a report that was published about 2 years ago. And the forecast period is from 2025 to 2033. And in this, they're saying the global gaming console market size was estimated at 26.32 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach 47.58 billion by 2023, growing at a compounded annual growth rate of 6.7% from 2025 to 2033. Now, again, I understand we're not going to see the level of growth that we saw 20 years ago. However, 6.7% is zero growth, and someone stands to benefit from 6.7% compounded annual growth rate from 2025 to 2033. Now, according to Grandview Research, the market growth is primarily driven by the rising global demand for immersive gaming experiences, increasing adoption of advanced gaming technologies, continuous innovation in console hardware and performance capabilities, growing popularity for online multiplayer and cross-platform gaming, the expansion of digital game distribution platforms. They also offer some key market trends and insights. Asia Pacific dominated the global gaming console market with the largest revenue share of over 46% in 2024. The gaming console market in China led the Asian Pacific market, and held the largest revenue share in 2024. Now, it's interesting. Again, this is Grandview Research. They actually, and this is just a summary of their market analysis. You actually have to buy the complete market analysis. They're just giving you a free sample here, and then they want you to buy it. But it's interesting. We talk about China, and when we think about a mature console market, I think we always think of the US, Europe, okay, or the UK in particular, North America. Sure. I mean, is there going to be a lot of growth there? Maybe there'll be some growth, but not explosive growth, or not the growth that we saw 20 years ago. However, is it possible that we'll see growth in other markets? According to this report, or this analysis, this market analysis, the gaming console market in China, and I know I'm repeating myself here, but the gaming console market in China led the Asia Pacific market and held the largest revenue share in 2024. By product, the PlayStation segment is expected to grow at significant market share of over 25% in 2024. So what's interesting is we hear China, and you look at in the Asia Pacific market, and you look at what is PlayStation doing right now. They just announced the fourth phase of the China Hero Project. So they're looking to partner with more Chinese developers. They're looking to gain footholds within the Chinese market. They also note Africa, that Middle East and Africa are the fastest growing markets. So we know there's been investments by Microsoft and PlayStation in Africa. I'm not sure about the Middle East. When I say investments, I mean partnerships with developers, things like that. All right, there's something else. Hold on a sec here. All right, this is another one by PwC, one of the big four firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers. The video game industry is a titan in global entertainment and media sector, and it's experiencing an unprecedented surge in popularity and profitability. This was when's this article? This is last January 2024. The growth is fueled by the industry's ability to captivate a wide audience, particularly young adults, a demographic advertisers are willing to pay premium to reach. These are their These are the according to PwC, these are the top 5 trends shaping this dynamic industry, driving its expansion, unlocking opportunities for revenue growth. Number 1, traditional platforms are bridging the gap between technologies. During the pandemic, many industry participants expected next gen tech like game streaming and extended reality XR to overtake mobile, but lackluster consumer adoption has shown that we're not quite ready to live in the metaverse. It's actually gaming's most traditional platforms, PC and console, that are riding the wave of blockbuster releases and helping drive growth in the industry during the transitionary period. So maybe one day we'll be in the metaverse like Ready Player One. Let's see here. And this is what I brought up earlier about the mobile market. We don't have conversations about the mobile market stalling or being a mature market. PwC mobile market stalling over the past decade. Mobile was the video game industry's primary growth driver, but that has slowed since the pandemic. Apple's identifier for advertisers, IDFA restrictions, combined with a softer economic climate, gave advertisers serious pause, and they pulled back from the mobile format. As a result, year over year in-app advertising revenue growth plunged from 46% in 2020 to only 16% in 2021. Smartphone saturation across global markets poses another challenge. While smartphones spread rapidly during the 2010s, their growth has plateaued. The takeaway: going forward, more publishers can create more relevant ads, improve targeting, and help achieve a better balance of ads and purchase offers. These efforts can help improve the gaming experience while growing average revenue per user, ARPU. We've talked about ARPU on this show. It's not about MAU, it's about ARPU. Slow start for new platforms. Early iterations of gaming streaming and XR underwhelmed consumers, leaving an uncertain timetable for mass adoption in their wake. Today is one of the most adopted streaming platforms is Microsoft's Game Pass, but its capability seems to be limited to smaller, less complex single-player games. Game streaming may not be a near-term driver of the industry, especially given Microsoft's announcement that it intends to sell Activision Blizzard streaming rights to appease UK regulators. Again, this goes back to 20. This is an article analysis by PwC that's published January 2024. So last year. Uh, The console and PC carry the day. In the early days of the pandemic, lockdown players flocked to console and PC games, and we've seen course correction of that, by the way. Despite COVID-19 driven impact supply chains that delayed new game launches and PS5 shipments, gamers are happy to buy a Switch and try out Animal Crossing or dust off the last generation PlayStation Xbox consoles. Flash forward to 2023, and the PS5 has sold more units life to date than the PS4 or PS3 and the marquee releases of The Legend of Zelda. Now, again, if the PS5 is selling more units life to date, and globally it's tracking ahead of the PS4, where is that coming from? If PlayStation has reported that 30% of PS5 owners did not own a PlayStation 4, what does that tell us? If we're going to say that the glass is full, then where are those 30% coming from? Are they coming from Nintendo? Are they coming from Xbox? These are the types of questions, the types of nuance conversations that we should be having and asking ourselves. Console wars are going to be crazy in the metaverse. Street Shadow with a $5 super chat says Sony has hero projects in China, India, Middle East, and North America. Mina is the newest, so those games are just getting funded. And it's interesting. Falcon and I talked about this in particular, China and the Middle East, North Africa, and India projects. And we talked about because a lot of people have made I think certain content creators who have a specific narrative have made a lot to do about what Totoki said about the rising costs of game development and improving margins and creating efficiencies, development, like things like that, right? Look, I don't disagree. Like AAA games those budgets can't continue ballooning without some course correction, right? And it's not just a Sony issue; it's a AAA issue too. And there's ways to do that. And one of the ways that Falky and I that we discussed on this show was perhaps part of that is what you're seeing with these investments, with these like with the China Hero project, where the cost of making video games is going to be much cheaper than the cost of making video games here in the U.S. We've seen that happen in the motion picture industry, where film, TV are now are things that are created outside of California because of the cost of labor, and the cost is much more expensive. So, and perhaps you start seeing that in the AAA gaming space as a way to address some of the rising cost of game development, and maybe some combination or implementation of AI to streamline things, and reduce costs, create efficiencies. But anyhow, that is something we discuss on this show. So I think it's interesting. I think it's a great point, Street Shadow, or thank you for reminding me actually for that. Sony has those different projects. Microsoft does too. Xbox does have some investment in Africa as well. I think through wasn't Matt Booty. I forget who talked about it, but it's been discussed there as well. We'll go back to PwC here. So PwC says, despite challenges from newer platforms and access technologies, industry growth continues to rely on its hits meant to be played on large, sophisticated devices like a PC or console. Number two, per PwC, platforms are aggressively pursuing IP, setting the stage for content silos. The gaming industry is in a late stage gold rush for premium intellectual property. This sets a stage for a future with platforms having their own exclusive games. Again, what did I say about consoles? They are nodes within these platform ecosystem. Just as video streaming services have exclusive shows, major players are making big acquisitions of premium IP, signaling their expectations that content and game titles will be differentiators, the keys to market success. This is PwC, signaling their expectations that content and game titles will be differentiators, the keys to market success. While publishers remain incentivized to make games available across devices, streaming technologies can make bulky devices like PCs and consoles obsolete. That could be a thing in the future again. But again, even if that is a thing, you still need product differentiators, exclusives to drive people to your streaming platform. Excuse me. I say it like that because it just drives me crazy how people downplay exclusivity and think, oh, well, you know what? Consoles, what happens when consoles go away? I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon, assuming the technology and the market accepts the kind of experiences that cloud can give us. But I think there's other issues with cloud streaming, with the internet infrastructure, but that's another conversation. Publishers won't have to rely on device gatekeepers to keep their games in the players' hands. According to industry specialists, the future of cloud gaming and streaming is expected to bring great experiences to players, no matter what kind of games they enjoy. And when that day comes, players won't need original equipment or OEM devices to play the hottest games. That is a big we'll see question mark for me. Again, it goes back to what the infrastructure looks like in terms of for internet and whether and how good those experiences are. Um, Publishers will then have the freedom to go straight to the players themselves. The only thing that will set games apart will be the content motivating publishers to make their games exclusives to their own platforms. We're already seeing this trend emerging. Microsoft and Sony have acquired studios, IP, and content, positioning themselves as rising over the top gaming platforms. Large independent publishers have some tough decisions to make. Will they jump on the bandwagon, create their own direct-to-consumer streaming platforms, or will they team up with established identity, with established entity? If they go the traditional route and make their games available elsewhere, they might miss out on the profit that can come with game distribution. As for smaller publishers that don't have the same scale of content, they'll likely keep relying on major outlets for distribution. In fact, some of them might even prefer to find a buyer instead of being a small fish in a big pond. The takeaway: when game streaming expands, consumers tend to benefit the most. Getting top-tier games no longer require a $400 device. Gamers can't just sign up for a few subscriptions at a fraction of a price. This subscription model can increase an addressable market and ultimately help drive growth to what mobile gaming enabled in the 2010s. Again, I don't. There's some big what ifs from my perspective with cloud game streaming. Yeah, Machine Exodus is, but it's a what if. Yeah, absolutely is a what if. All right, there's another article. Wanted to read PwC because PwC does have good analysis. Let's see here. There's another. Oh, here we go. Let's see if I can open this link here. All right, here's another analysis by EMR. Again, this is something you have to buy. Believe it or not, this actually, I'm looking at the website here. It's about a data sheet is about $3,149. A single user license is $5,039. So this is a market research firm. Gaming console market size and share outlook, forecast trends and growth analysis report 2025-2034. The global gaming console market was valued at $56.25 billion in 2024. That's different from, I think, the other report that had a estimate. This one's saying it was valued. The industry is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 7.2% during the forecast period of 2025 to 2034. Online multiplayer gaming is one of the primary market drivers. The increasing internet connectivity across the globe has resulted in more people playing on consoles to enjoy seamless real-time interactions with other gamers. Games like Fortnite, Call of Duty, Apex Legends have raised curiosity of the multiplayer gaming system. Okay, this is something to think about just for a second here. Humor me here. If we're saying the console market's mature, and then we're reading an analysis that says that the rise of internet access that's connecting more people, and introducing people to gaming experiences, multiplayer gaming experiences in particular. And if the cheapest way to access those types of games is through consoles, because it probably will be and not PC, then it stands to reason that there's probably going to be some growth in other markets, right? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Let's see here. In turn, all these factors resulted in the market attaining a valuation of 112.74 billion by 2034. So they're saying that the This particular EMR, this particular research firm is saying that that the console market will reach a valuation of 12.74 billion by 2034. Their summary of if we're looking at the compound annual growth rate by region, Asia Pacific at 9.3%. That's between 2020. I should note this 2025 to 2034. So the report is saying this analysis is saying that here are the markets, here are the regions where we're going to see compound annual growth rate. Asia Pacific 9.3%, India 10.7%, Canada 8.9%, China 16.9%. And then they give their gaming console market overview. The massive growth in the global market for gaming consoles could be attributed to advances made in gaming technology, increasing popularity of gaming as an entertainment area, and a growing population of gamers around the globe. The traditional and next generation consoles provide enhanced graphics, immersive gameplay experience, and cloud gaming capabilities, bolstering the gaming consoles' demand. Furthermore, that's what I talked about, the evolution of gaming consoles. They're not just video game consoles anymore. They do other things and are, again, a no to a ecosystem. Furthermore, with the emergence of cloud gaming services and subscription models, console makers are also aiming to provide digital content and game streaming to suit the changing trends in the preferences of gamers. That's what I said earlier. Region-wise, the market is extremely competitive. North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific hold competitive positions for market expansion. Among these regions, India has emerged as one of the very significant growth areas with a huge gaming population. The gaming console market in the United States is also going strong because of a large gamer base and huge demand for gaming subscription services. We kind of saw that in PlayStation's financials. We see Microsoft reporting, I don't know if it was rec revenue for Game Pass. Although interesting, be interesting to know to hear from Microsoft. While the revenue hit, I think it was $5 billion. Be interesting to see what the profits for Game Pass look like. They probably won't report that soon, but still, I mean, the revenue increase, right? Where was it? Oh, the market also experiences greater demand for high-end consoles as a result of the increasing popularity of esports and online multiplayer games. PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo are leading the game console market. And look, this is the thing that really just that I don't agree with. When people say, "Well, your kids are gaming on mobile, that's the future. They're not going to want to game on televisions." How do we know that? I mean, are we assuming that our kids aren't going to own televisions, or that their tastes may change, or that, again, they're only afforded the opportunities to game on whatever device we allow them to game on? My kids don't primarily game on handhelds. They'll do it. They don't like it. It's not their preferred method of gaming. They will prefer to sit in front of my 65-inch OLED with the PlayStation 5 Pro or on my PC, where they like to have the best gaming experience. I've always said that, PC. Machine X video streaming is actually quite good. I've heard mixed things. I mean, I've heard it's good. Definitely not 1-to-1. And so when I say about streaming, like for me, it's got to be 1-to-1. As the kind of experience you would have playing, playing on a hardware device. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. As all of them have introduced very exclusive features with VR integration and backward compatibility. Furthermore, the gaming console demand is due to an increasing number of gamers who perceive this space as a hub for entertainment and a blend of digital interaction and social connectivity, thereby maintaining the flow of support. And this is what I said earlier. And this is what's often taken off the table when I have this conversation about consoles. And people, consoles are dying. The glass is full, the cup is full, and they don't, and they, the younger generation wants experiences with a social loop or hook to it, and et cetera, et cetera. But the consoles, allow for those types of experiences. That's what I said earlier. When I was growing up, consoles were very different. And as the market started to change, the consumers started to change a bit. These things became entertainment hubs. I said there were entertainment hubs earlier, and you see that blend of digital interaction, social connectivity. I mean, I think it was Matt Piscatello talked about it's hard for people to leave ecosystems because of their friends list. That's that social connectivity. The younger generations value that. Gaming market growth. The subscription based gaming console models are driving heavy growth in the global market. Xbox Cloud Gaming and PlayStation Now are serving the purpose of increasing, now it's PlayStation Plus, or serving the purpose of increasing access to high quality games. When was this? Let's see here. Oh, so this article was actually just updated January of this year, or this analysis by this market research firm, which, by the way, I'm not going to pay $3,000 for the entire report, or 5,000 for a single user license. Jeez. Let's see here. And PlayStation Plus are serving the purpose of increasing access to high quality games streamed directly onto consoles without the need for having copies and high end hardware. Penetrating the market are much easier as these subscription models like Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus have become increasingly popular among gamers who are willing to access libraries of games at a small price every month. This niche also presents growth opportunities for companies in terms of having built-in reoccurring revenue and contributing significantly to the overall experience of gaming. That PlayStation Plus was, I have to pull that slide again. I think is you look at the increased revenue from PlayStation Plus for last generation. I think that's a big reason too why PlayStation 5 is the most successful or most profitable of all the PlayStation generations. This niche also presents growth opportunities for companies in terms of having built-in recurring revenue and contributing significantly to the overall experience of gaming. Subscription models can thus help keep consumers engaged for a longer period and promoting their retention, thereby accelerating growth in the gaming console market. I had to get that out real quick. Pause. The gaming console market is further driven to greater heights by the concept of esports and competitive gaming. The market enjoys a huge demand for high performance consoles created and developed, especially to meet the needs of gamers. The demand for such consoles will increase even more once the likes of professional leagues, tournaments, and streaming such as Twitch start expanding. Important features consider the market niche, include power processing power, ultra low latency, and connectivity prowess of the consoles. Thus, console manufacturers are further cupping out features for those into hardcore gameplay, including better prep controllers, network preference, and even selected titles made specifically for esports fans. Now we've seen PlayStation make a push into esports with Evo and with the new fighting stick that they have. So just something to think about. Let's see here. Opportunities in gaming console market. One significant growth opportunity in the gaming console market. I'll give it a dog. One significant growth opportunity in the gaming console market lies in AI enhanced gameplay that enables dynamic and adaptive experiences where non-player characteristics can learn from player actions and adjust their behaviors accordingly. In 2024, video games will incorporate AI to customize experiences, leading to unique storylines and gameplay paths shaped by player choices. A prime example of this is found in the open world games such as Cyberpunk 2077, which leverage AI to develop environments and interactions that feel both responsive and genuine, aiding the gaming console market revenue. Further, the cloud gaming sector is experiencing significant expansion as platforms as Xbox Cloud Gaming and PlayStation Now PlayStation Plus allow users to stream games without requiring high performance local. Okay, I think I already read this, but anyhow, so this is this was actually an interesting analysis, but I wanted to bring this up because I really I'm just trying to add a bit more of nuance to this conversation because I just had it. The question was asked to me, and I felt like there was just a lot taken off the table. And I don't know if it's to prove a narrative or show how one company has it right and the other doesn't. Um, but that's why I did some of this research and pulled some of this analysis by different research analysts companies, too, in particular at PwC as well. Um, because I think it's important to read and to read some of these trends and to ask questions, to critically think about the information that we're reading here and how it applies to even at times our own consumer behavior. Yeah, yeah, Russell, we're gonna need you to take it easy, buddy. We don't do the console warring stuff in here, so you calling Game Pass a scam is not okay. You're more than happy to participate in the live chat, but if you're going to console war like that, you can leave. So so that's all I really want to discuss. I could probably get into more detail about this, and I probably will have. I'll probably talk about this a bit more because if again, I'm frustrated by the lack of nuance around the conversations with gaming, and I'm trying to add a bit more nuance, a bit more information, data, whatever analysis to the conversation. I feel like it's important. So, but anyhow, that is all I have. I'm going to try to get some guests on next week. I didn't have any guests on this week because I wanted to talk a lot about this particular topic. Um, but I'll probably do a follow up about some of the things I covered and have some guests on and kind of get their thoughts and opinions on some of this analysis information and things like that. So I do want to thank everyone for joining the show. Like I said, BRAP rants. This is more of a traditional BRAP rant, not the 2 hour BRAP that you're accustomed to. But I do want to thank everyone for sticking it out and listening to me rant on for about an hour and a half. Really appreciate it. Do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And thank you again for watching. And also, please remember, have fun playing video games because ultimately that's what it's all about. And Russell, no, it's not a touchy subject. It's how you present that subject. You console warring it here, not okay. I don't know why you do it. I don't know why people do it. It's childish. Stop. Just enjoy your video games. Enjoy the ecosystem that you participate in because ultimately that's what it's all about. On that note, we're out. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll catch you next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care.